something.
Something like that.
Maybe too. I don't think none of us picked that.
Recording in progress.
Hey, well, good evening. This is a work session of the Greenbelt City Council. My name is Emmett Jordan. I serve as mayor. My peers on council, could you introduce yourselves?
Kristen Weaver, Mayor Pro Tem.
Jenny Pompey, council member.
Silky Pope, council member.
Daniel McKinney, council member.
Rodney Roberts, City Council.
Okay. Hey, anybody got any information items to discuss at the end of the meeting? It's going twice. Okay. Well, let me just share the statement. This is a work session. We hold these council work sessions on Mondays and Wednesdays several times a month to exchange information with community stakeholder groups or to gather information from staff, advisory boards, or residents. No votes or formal actions are taken at work sessions. These work sessions and meetings are always open to the public, except for executive sessions as authorized by state law so that residents and others can observe council deliberations. We do strive to provide reasonable opportunities for the public to speak and matters being considered. So during these times, and we'll pause periodically for a public comment. If you are in the room and wishing to make a public comment, if you raise your hand after being recognized, you just go up to the podium. You need to state your name and where you live in Greenbelt, more or less. We need those for the minutes. If you're on Zoom, because we're doing this hybrid, so if you're on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen to post a question, or if you raise your virtual hand, we'll recognize you and promote you so you can speak. And finally, if you are watching on cable TV, you can send an email to questions@greenbeltmd.gov. So with the public comments, we ask that you focus on just one question at a time. Please keep your comments about 3 minutes. And as always, we want you to be civil in your remarks. We strive, we're all neighbors here, so it's important to try and keep that right tone because we're all in this together. So tonight is a special meeting. We're actually sitting down and talking with the Public Safety Advisory Committee. And it's been a little while. I don't think we've done this in a while, maybe 2 years. And I actually think it's a good idea for us from time to time to sit down with our advisory boards. We do have an annual meeting with the chairs, but to sit down with the entire Public Safety Advisory Board or any of the other advisory boards, I think it's a good idea to check in every so often. So I see that they are all here with us now, and the chairperson, Peggy Higgins, could you go ahead and introduce the other members of the Public Safety Advisory Committee?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council, for having us here this evening. I'm Peggy Higgins and the chair of the Public Safety Advisory Committee, and I'll let my colleagues introduce each themselves.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Mirsky.
Good.
If you move the microphone a little bit closer, it'll turn red around the microphone when it's like around the base of it here when it's actually reading your voice. So try, right up at the top, maybe pull it down a little bit more. I think there. See how it gets red around the
Thank you, Kristen.
yeah.
Should work.
You got it.
Try again.
All I have to do is talk.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Still not.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh. Good evening. My name is Mary Thomas.
Good evening. I'm Eunice Pierre.
Hi, I'm Stan Zirkin.
And we have two other members, John Otina, who is not going to be able to be here tonight, and I'm not sure whether Laura Kressler, Dr. Laura Kressler, is also a member of the committee, whether she's going to be able to make it.
Okay. And as always, we're joined by our city manager, Josue Samaron. And we've also got police chief and Deputy Police Chief Tim White is here with us in the room. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey, do you just want to talk a little bit about what you've been focusing on recently, or your feeling about the charge that we've given you. It's not really spelled out so specifically on any document. There's like a paragraph which describes the function of the Public Safety Advisory Committee. So I think there's some degree of flexibility in what you focus on from time to time. Council makes specific referrals on issues, usually several times a year. But other times, committees just undertake projects on their own, and they check back in with council, and that communication back and forth is very important. So why don't we start off? I know you've been meeting on a monthly basis, more or less. So what have you been up to lately?
Wow. We didn't know what the meeting was about, so okay. I guess the things that we've been focused the most on have been what our charge was to the council in 2010, to review the Just and Fair Police Act, the ordinance that the council it was a draft ordinance that the council had sent to the Public Safety Advisory Committee. And before I was appointed in December of 2020. And so the committee had decided to look at that issue within the perspective of looking at the police department's general orders. And as you all who have been on the council a long time and reelected are aware that in May of 2021, we submitted, our committee unanimously presented to the council 30-plus resolution or recommendations for changes in the general orders. And then the city council adopted 22 of those resolutions unanimously as well, and that left 9 pending. And that was in January of 2022, I believe. And then one of the resolutions in that, one of the issues or items in that resolution was that the police department would continue to send any updated on the general orders to the Public Safety Advisory Committee, the council, and the city manager. And so we're now in the process of reviewing a new group of general orders that we received we received a pack in May and a pack in June. And tomorrow night we'll finish up reviewing those. So that's, and other people want to comment on that? Stan, you look like you're ready to talk.
I'm always ready to talk, but no, that's accurate. But we've also been involved in, several years ago, we gave a report on security cameras in the area. Sure. And we're looking at updating, and one of the things that the chief is asking for is like a license plate reader instead of the traditional security cameras that they think would be more efficient. And we're waiting, I believe, for some further information from the police department on that, and to give our recommendation or input, if requested, to the council concerning the efficacy of those types of equipment.
Yeah.
Mr. Looks like you want to say something.
Is it last year or the year before we also had forums throughout Greenbelt Public Safety Forums to really tap in to issues of the Greenbelt community that they had relating to public safety. We also had, accompanying with those forums, we had a survey that we circulated to address different issues. So those were the things that most recently that we've been involved in.
Yeah, those were in 2021, and we submitted a 7-page report in regards to what the community had to say, and thank you for raising that as well. And then as a result of the survey and the forums, there was a lot of interest, or not a, well, there was a bit of interest. You know, I can't say after all this time the percentage, but there was a interest from the citizens regarding the officer-involved shooting that non-officials review that video as well, which is, I think we made that request last March. March, regarding that. Mary, did you have anything? And Steve, we'll let you talk, even though you're the new kid on the block. Closer to the mic. Close to the mic.
You may have to speak up a little bit more for the mic to pick
See
it up.
if it comes a little bit closer, that'll probably be better.
Okay.
There you go.
Now, I agree with what everyone has said. This, is serving our purpose of trying to push things ahead and working together. So,
Thanks, Mary. Steve?
I've only been on the committee for 10 months. I looked back at my notebook to see when I started in February. So my brief time here agrees with that. I think we were planning to discuss some other areas of interest,
Yes.
but I don't know if this is the appropriate.
Not yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, appreciate that. So, this is a very challenging time in Greenbelt and Prince George's County and throughout the nation. It just seems like the perception and the reality of crime in our communities has come to the forefront in the past 2 years in particular. Juvenile crime, carjackings, gun violence. So, as we in Greenbelt, as residents try and cope with these issues, our state legislature also has a lot of latitude in setting policies. So we're about to go in another legislative session. So I suspect that there'll be a number of bills put forward that have to do with juvenile justice. So I would venture to say that maybe the mood and the climate about public safety has changed somewhat over the past year in particular. I don't know if my colleagues will agree with me, and certainly I'm going to recognize you eventually, Mr. Roberts, but right now, if you don't mind, I'm gonna
Just
speak
trying
a
to
little
get
bit-
your
Yeah,
attention
hold on,
there.
I've got your
Appreciate it.
attention, yeah.
That's good.
So-
Good to peripheral vision, so.
So, I don't know, it's just a different environment. The work that was done around modifying, making recommendations around general orders was very, very important. And council took to heart your recommendations and moved, it's not our place to modify general orders. It truly is the place of the police chief to set work standards and criteria for members of the police department through the city manager, who is the chief public safety official in the city of Greenbelt. So I would say that 85% of the recommendations we moved forward. The other ones, there were some concerns about the CLIA certification process, changing the standards while the certification was taking place, and also legislative measures. The state delegation was considering different bills. So greatly appreciative of your work on those issues. Circling back to the security cameras, there's a lot of concern. Things have happened in Shrum Hills Park, other places in the city, shootings, and, just terrible things. So the move towards cameras and license plate readers, there are implications around privacy. But at the same time, there's a real push, a real interest in trying to find ways to make sure that the perception, the feeling that people feel safe and actually are as safe as we can possibly make them. So these are really challenging times that we're living in. And guess that's part of the impetus for actually sitting down and talking with you guys. It's good. It's important to talk from time to time. So you were saying, well, why are we meeting tonight? Because we said that we would meet, and it's been a little while. We had to reschedule a couple of times. But that's why we're here, to kind of take a look at where we are, to look forward, talk about what we can do to increase the perception and the reality of safety. You know, you are our liaisons. The advisory board makes suggestions to us, but also the public comes to you and asks you questions or shares concerns. So the outreach that you did with the survey and the forums, very, very important. It's just been difficult also because, you know, during COVID, it was really hard to actually convene people in person. And it's always hard to convene people in person. It's busy. It's hard to get a good response on a survey. You know, you can, was out there. And I think you did a good job of that with the survey. I think there were a number of different ways that people could respond. They could respond in writing. They could there was something on the website where people could respond. And you did the forums. That was all sort of integrated together to try and get community input. It's kind of like the local elections. We try and get people to vote. And it's kind of surprising, the turnout sometimes. So that's kind of where I'm trying to go. That's where council's trying to go. Silky Pope has been the liaison to the PSAC for quite some time. Silky, why don't you jump in?
I just wanted to ask about the camera report. I know a few years ago we were talking about cameras, and you guys made some really good suggestions where they should be placed or where they could be placed. So, but of course, in the meantime, I think that was before COVID, if I'm not mistaken,
yes,
right? So it's been a while ago.
long
So
before.
now we're in a different, we're in 2023 and all kinds of other craziness is happening. And I'm wondering, and I think I mentioned that before, we should maybe revisit that report and see, what needs to be adjusted, because I'm sure in the meantime, we would probably think of some other places where there should be cameras. And also there's a new legislation about cameras in multifamily apartment complexes. I don't know if you heard about that. I think I shared that with you, if I'm not mistaken. There are new requirements for apartment complexes who have more than 100 apartments or something. It's a lower number than that. It's a lower number than that. I was going to say it might. So they have new requirements on installing cameras and where and how many, and it's a whole new ball game. But I think it's important to maybe get back to that subject and look at that again.
We have, Silky, that was several months ago. We did that, and we got the report that was drafted by PSAC, and that was sent and presented to the council. And we wanted to get an update, essentially from the police department, to say, are there any areas that we've missed or should be redirected in terms of we focus on violent crimes rather than, everybody's stealing cars these days. So it's just, it's just, and as long as, it doesn't result in physical
sad,
harm.
but true, yeah.
So that's what we started, and we reached out to Chief Bowers to see, his input, and that's where the information came concerning maybe rather than doing the more traditional security cameras, that we do the license plate readers, which I think would be a better investment. So that's what we're still in the process of doing that.
And I think we have to probably involve our technical experts with that as well. Dale Worley's department probably, because I know in previous years we always had issues with our infrastructure was older and cameras are too modern. There was no, we couldn't connect it. We have to upgrade. So I don't even know where we are with that. But I think that is another component that we have to be aware of.
As a matter of fact, he said that a lot of times, COVID obviously put a crimp in the whole thing, plus budgetary considerations, plus the problem with IT. It's not so much placing the cameras, it's connecting the cameras to a place where it could be useful.
And there's a lot of county legislation that's coming out that's having an impact, for better or for worse, on Greenbelt. Just working with State's Attorney Braveboy on issues. I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sure you got some more stuff you want to say. I don't have that much, but I just have a couple things I want to mention. First of all, I'm really kind of flabbergasted at the conversation about the cameras and everything, because it's pretty clear that cameras are really not helping this situation. And when the stuff begins to get closer and closer to you, you begin to have a different view. Just a few weeks ago, I was up at a shopping center in Savage, just right off of Route 1 there.
Yep.
And so I got to, view firsthand about, 50 feet away from me, a gentleman being hijacked, carjacked, jumped by a bunch of guys, chased across the parking lot with, I don't know if it was a handgun or a taser or something. And, then they, grabbed his keys and jumped in their cars and jumped in his car, and off they went, speeding through the parking lot. And you talk about, okay, it's okay if they steal the car as long as no one's hurt. Well, they came close to running over, people in the parking lot. So we shouldn't be condoning any kind of theft of car by anyone. And what we should be doing is asking that the state and our local officials start prosecuting the people that are doing the crimes, because that's the problem. We're not prosecuting them. We don't need the state legislature to make new laws and all this stuff. We need to follow the laws we have now and prosecute these people and let people know that if they get caught doing this, then there's going to be real consequences, because otherwise it's not going to stop. We can sit here and say all the nice little words we want, but it's going to keep on going and going and going. We need to enforce the law. That's what we need. All the cameras in the world are not going to solve this problem, because those guys that I saw up there, a few weeks ago, robbing the guy, they didn't give a hoot and holler and where about cameras. Okay, maybe we'll catch someone once in a while, because of a camera, but it's not stopping people from being robbed or anything else. We need to have more police on the street, and we need to have enforcement of what the laws are. And that's so. I'm
pretty
just
difficult things myself.
flabbergasted by this.
So I'm flabbergasted myself. But I don't appreciate simple solutions. The solution is not simple, and is not.
No one says
Hold
it's
on,
simple.
hold on. Well,
It's
it
not
sounded-
simple,
it
but
sounded pretty
you
simplistic
can waste
coming
all
from
the
you.
money you
But
want
I'm not
on
gonna go
cameras,
there.
but that's not getting
Mr.
us
Roberts?
anywhere.
Mr. Mursky has something.
Yes, please go ahead.
Say something?
Have an open discussion about the issue.
Please, Mr. Mursky, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you. I am not going to speak about what Mr. Roberts said, only because I'm an engineer, and I think that the Chief of Police Bowers made a very good presentation to us about different camera technology, which we also went to visit. Not to make any comments about what you said,
Go ahead. I don't care.
but I just want to. So this is this is the engineer speaking. Okay, I'm just the engineer speaking. So what I heard was that the cameras we have now are really not very useful, because most cameras of that technology can't even identify the person. I don't want to speak for the chief, but I'm going from my memory because it was technology. And also, to be realistic, I think it's fair to say that to have sufficient cameras and reliability, it's a very large drain on our IT resources, which are limited. So what was recommended were these license plate, but there's a reason for that. So I just want to bring the engineering part, and then I'll be quiet, if that's okay. So Greenbelt is a small enough area, unlike a big parking lot in Savage, where there's only so many inroads and outroads. And the people out there who are doing the carjacking, they're just going, just like when you want to protect your house from burglary, they look for the easiest marks. It's not 100% guaranteed. A real professional burglar will go into any house. the easiest marks. If we have these license plate recording cameras and they go after the people in the cars with the license plates, the stolen cars, then what's going to happen, which I believe is true, is that the word will get out eventually. This is not as easy an area. Not that they won't do it at all, but this is not an easy an area because we're identifying immediately license plates of stolen cars. And so what would the people who do this, they will go to other communities. I'm not saying we want to force them to go, but so this is a little bit of a clever way to reduce that. And so that's my engineering input only. And it will be maintained by the company that sells it. They will maintain it, update it, and replace it with newer technology. So we don't have that burden on ourselves.
So I appreciate it. I guess what I'm trying to do is have a higher level conversation about, crime and public safety in Greenbelt, not to zero in on any one technology, but really do a little brainstorming about what we can do, what you can do to kind of help focus our community on so we can take what's within our power. Now, I talked about the state legislature, I talked about the county council, I talked about our state's attorney, and in the area of juvenile justice, I do think some significant things are going to be coming up from the state legislature, focusing in on what a local state's attorney can do as far as prosecuting and following up and making sure that there are consequences that occur when
I do have a
young
suggestion, but I'm Councilwoman.
I just wanted to make a quick comment about cameras. I think we all know that the camera is not the end all of all a crime situation that we are experiencing in the city of Greenbelt. I think it can be used as a tool, like other tools that we have, or hopefully going to have, but it's not the answer to crime. And I just want to point that out, that we all agree on that that's not the case. So it was not like, let's put a whole bunch of cameras and, police can go home and we're good. And that's not what it is. It's just, we're just trying to figure out, with the help of Public Safety Advisory Committee, what can we do? What's the possibilities and trying to reduce it like it was just said. Thank you.
So I'd like to kind of challenge my peers on council, if you have some thoughts about public safety and about how the Public Safety Advisory Committee can help be that bridge with our residents. And also we should kind of draw the police department, the chief.
And when it's time, I have a comment.
Fortunately, we only have so many microphones here, but one of, yes.
I was wondering if it might be a good idea for the Public Safety Advisory Committee to maybe do a meeting with our Youth Advisory Committee and talk to them and see if there are ways that you can work with them, especially as we're talking about juvenile crime, youth crime, ways that you can work together with them to just come up with some solutions, some suggestions. You might get different viewpoints about, what's going on from their perspective.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, go ahead, Peggy, no.
Just be very brief. While you were talking in terms of the issues that Greenbelt as a whole is trying to deal with, one of the thoughts that I had was, it's somewhat dated, but it's not, statistically significant, or, you can't say it's anything other than the people who participated. But I think over 50 people at least, maybe more, maybe 90, participated in that survey forums, and they gave some very valuable information that might be a foundation or a component. Like you said, it's complex, but to help develop a strategic plan in terms of what people's perspectives are. Just something that you might want, to be looked at. It's not the end all be all, but it might be a good start. That's all I had to say.
Councilmember McKinney or Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I think, because walking around and knocking on doors before the election, that was definitely one of the feeling of being unsafe was definitely something that came up very frequently, and what can we do about it, and not feeling as comfortable walking around as they used to. And I think some of that is some of that is out of our control and some of that is, yeah. But I think the other thing that I heard on the other side was concerns about too many cameras and tracking us and things like that, and you know, if and what is the retention of those records and things like that. So I think that also could be something that could be helpful to maybe PSAC can help communicate to residents about some of the reasoning behind why this is necessary. What are the policies and procedures in sort of, you know, useful plain language of what the cameras are going to be used for, how they're, you know, how they function, how long the records are kept, and helping communicate some of that to people to help with the concerns on the other side. Because I think it does seem like, you know, you've got a car that's been stolen and you can find out that it's there, you know, with the police where to go find it. But on the other side, people are concerned about, well, are they keeping track of me coming in and out of my neighborhood every day? And I think they're paying attention to both sides of that, I think, is important. There was at the National League of Cities, I went to a presentation by a company that does cameras, and I'm not remembering the name of the company right now. And there is, they mentioned that there was some research out there about the effectiveness of cameras and as a deterrence. And I gave her my card, and she was supposed to email me the actual papers, and I think she forgot to do it. So I'm going to have to see if I can remember the name of the person that I was talking to and track it down. But I'm not technically a scientist myself, but I work with a lot of scientists. I like seeing the research and the data, and that what is actually been shown to be correct. So if I can track down the person that I was trying to get those papers from, I will pass those along.
I think IACP has it, the
It could be.
International Association of Police.
Yeah.
One of the difficulties that we've been made aware of is that in a lot of these situations where cars are stolen, that there are adult gangs who use kids to do it, because if the kids do it and they get caught, there's very limited sanctions that can be imposed against them. And I'm not sure, you know, what the answer to that is, but it seems to me really problematic.
Yeah, and I think those are some of the issues that are challenging for us to deal with just as Greenbelt, because they're part of those wider policies and wider things that are happening in a broader sense beyond Greenbelt. But I think the balancing act between safety and surveillance is you have to get the right point. I guess
So, Member McKinney.
Thank you. So first, I want to say thank you, because I know it's not easy serving on advisory boards. So I want to thank you for your all service. And then I wanted to add on to one thing that Councilmember Pompey had suggested, and also maybe talking to our parks and our recreation team, because obviously with some of the things that have happened in our parks recently, and around some of those open areas, there might be something in a different group of people that would like to talking and express some concern about some of the safety issues that they're seeing in some of those areas. And then just thinking about one of the newer members on council, I'd really be interested to see what was the result of the community forums that you had held in the past few years. Not just the notes, but were there things that were prioritized that came out of that? So what were, you know, the top 5 that received, you know, the most amount of concern, or that you heard the most? As Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, when we were going around, we heard public safety in general, but there were a few things that were standing out. And I think just thinking a little bit strategically on where do we start, right? And how can we help to facilitate the conversation? We probably are going to need to narrow down some of the things that we might have heard in the community. So it would be great for us, as well as maybe some of the members of the community that participated in those forums, to just get a summarized version of what you heard, and then maybe what some of the priorities you have. And please forgive me if that is gone. I know that I'm a newer member here, but it would be great to have
That's
a copy
fine.
of that.
Yeah, our report was, I don't know that I don't recall it. I haven't looked at it recently. I don't think that we prioritized it, but we were pretty deliberate, and we did send it to everyone who participated in survey, but I think going back to it, and actually I wrote down too, in addition to talking with Parks and Rec, it sounds as you all have been door knockers, that speaking individually to each one of you about what you heard in terms of priorities, sounds like it might be a good idea too.
I did write down notes, but I doubt anybody else could read my handwriting.
Oh, no,
so,
no.
I would have to go back and look
But
at
we'd
what
be
the.
happy to send it to you and see if there's a way to prioritize, or how maybe that's something the council might want to, or have us do and check it with you.
I just want to mention about the survey, and because I was on the committee when we got the survey results. I remember the number was something on the order of 90.
Yeah, I thought so.
About 90. So, and I think it's worth looking through, but again, I'm going to put on my engineer's hat. So the population of Greenbelt is about 24,000.
Something like that.
And even if you look at units, I'm willing to bet it's 8 or 10,000. So these were people willing or motivated enough to write something, but they represent, I'm going to use a technical term, a statistically insignificant number of residents. So they're outspoken, but we should keep that in mind that they may not represent the total population.
So 2,500 people voted from 15,000 registered voters. One might draw the same conclusion.
That report is on I found it under the PSAC minutes archive. It is it's there.
We're very good at that. I can send it out again. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
My perception is there really is a lot of real fear out there. You know,
Yes.
I've talked to residents that
I
they're
don't
actually
walk in
afraid
Shroom
to
Hills
go
anymore.
to walk over to Shroom Hills Park on a
Right.
regular basis,
Yeah.
and other places in the city where people are really scared.
Things that happens during the daylight too, which was really bizarre. I mean, just in the middle of nowhere. At night, people walking around at night, they know there's an inherent difficulty, particularly women alone. But there's a lot of these crimes that I've been reading about in the news review occurs in broad daylight.
Daylight and right here next to the municipal building, practically.
Well, when we did the survey, it was about 2 years ago. And one of the questions we asked was, how safe do you feel? And what were your concerns in your neighborhood? And it seems like from the door knocking that you guys did during your campaign, that issue is still prevalent. People still feel unsafe. And to the extent that we can gather some community engagement around that issue to really propel some sort of change, that would be helpful. I do know that we only received 90, but I do believe that you got to start somewhere. So right now we're starting at 90, but I believe that this is an issue that is very important to Greenbelt citizens right now. And so I think that any action that we can take on our part to say, hey, we know this is an issue for you. We want to hear from you. We want to work with you in terms of solutions.
Yeah, I think the perception, the feeling of safety, it's definitely a big issue for a lot of people. And you have that feeling or perception, and then how does that play out in terms of what you do about it? For some people, they may hunker down. They may be afraid to actually go out and go to a program at the community center. Other people just might be a little bit less trusting and friendly. And, it plays out in a lot of different ways. I'd like to try and draw the chief into the conversation a little bit. If you don't mind.
Chief.
That works perfect. So, Chief, you've got a big job just in terms of the number of incidents that happen in Greenbelt every day, working with the neighboring jurisdictions, just managing the police department itself. So, working with the advisory board and working with the city manager, you have a lot of different demands, a lot of things pulling you in different directions. So one thing that has a big impact on perception is just the reality and being able to access information and data on what's happening in the city in the way of crime. And there's some changes about 2 years ago. I guess the way that the crime statistics were reported out to the news review in a particular format that changed around in order to provide a more robust access to the information. So that's kind of had a mixed reception. But I know that sometimes in working with the advisory board, they're asking for information, they're asking for this, they're asking for that. How do you manage those different demands? And how do you manage just in terms of working with residents and trying to provide them information on crime?
So we try to keep as much information publicly available on our website or on any of our social media pages. So we do regular postings of crime data on the city website, whether it be our monthly stats. We produce the weekly that goes out to the news review, and that's also, again, posted, I believe, on the Facebook page each week by our social media person, Ricardo, who's not here tonight. But so all of that happens through the PIO. We try to provide as much information so that way when we do get requests, we can kind of already have the information pre-prepared so we're not having to go back and reproduce things. We're also pushed out the traffic data dashboard a couple of weeks ago that you guys are aware of, maybe months ago now. And we're finalizing some of the kinks in the data dashboard for the crime reports, and that should be live here shortly. And we feel pretty good about those pieces of information and making sure all that's publicly available. And that does reduce a lot of the requests that we get.
If I'm not mistaken, or I know PSAC a few years back, you in doing some of the work that you were doing with the general order recommendations, you were trying to unearth information, statistics, and sometimes it's kind of hard to get to some of that information. So how has that been working out, or how's just in terms of the relationship between the police department and PSAC? How's the balance?
So it's good. Peggy and I communicate pretty regularly. So whenever there's anything that they need, the one hard part on our end is sometimes some of this stuff just doesn't exist as a statistic that we've ever kept. So it means we're having to produce a document or a data set that we've never produced before. Usually just takes us a while to figure out how to produce that data set in a usable format. But once we get, we know what the data set they're looking for is, it's pretty easy. Like I said, we've also tried to sort of think ahead of times of what sort of data sets are people looking for and have those pre-prepared. And I know one of the things that had come up previously was like the traffic data. So we have that as the dashboard now that's on the website. You can jump on it. You can get a good firsthand look at what that data looks like.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there was some questions about traffic stops and whatnot. And I
would like to say,
please go ahead.
As you mentioned, the chief has been very busy. It's a full-time job. We really appreciate he's taken the time the last several months to come on a regular basis to the PSAC meetings, and that's really been very helpful. So thank you.
So you're talking about sometimes the data just doesn't exist.
That's correct. So there was some questions, I think originally about some juvenile offender data. In the format that was being asked for just didn't exist, that we didn't produce it that way. And so we had to go back through records and be able to produce it in a manner that satisfied what the resolution was looking for. So that takes time to figure out how to make that data work. And anytime we're doing something different, everybody in the building, because of the nature of what we do, we're a municipal police department, so everybody has 10 jobs already. So when we're trying to produce something new, you're giving somebody a new task that already has a full workload, and they're trying to squeeze that new task on top of everything else that they're already doing.
Appreciate that. Staff is really pressed sometimes, and I know that Deputy Chief White used to be the data guru at one point.
He still is the data guru.
So I think
May I make one?
Oh, please go ahead.
And I have not been paid by the chief or deputy chief at all, but I think I'm a very big fan of facts, and so I think we're very lucky that our police department has been able to fill its entire complement of officers, hire officers, so we have a full complement. Because if you look around the country, and I have friends and family all over the country, that is not the case. The fact that we're able to attract and retain the full complement is not a small accomplishment. However it's been done, And so that should be a source of a little bit of pride in terms of this field where things are very, very tough in a lot of police departments.
Yeah, that's an important point. Coming back from the National League of Cities conference, just talking with peers from across the country, from other municipalities, it's like one of the top issues, just not being able to really recruit police officers a full complement. But there's a constant churn. There's constantly turnover.
There is a regular turnover. We have some in the academy now. We have 5 in the academy. We have 2 pending retirements at the end of the year. So, it's this trying to stay ahead of that curve and knowing when people are planning to retire or potentially resign, and always trying to have people in the academy ready to go, because it isn't a prolonged hiring cycle to get somebody actually as a police officer. 3 months of a hiring cycle, 7 months of a police academy, 3 months of field training. It's almost a year from the time they apply and we actually test them to the time they go 10-8 by themselves. So it's a long process to get a police officer ready to go. So being able to kind of be in advance of those vacancies really does help us.
And my understanding is the city's bonus payments have really helped interest people.
They did help, yeah.
Yeah.
We're a little ahead of the curve somehow with that. We were out there before some of our sister municipalities, and
There was a number of the counties were doing it ahead of us, but in terms of municipalities, we sort of leapt in front of everybody in terms of timing and dollars, and I think that did help.
And the city of Greenbelt's an attractive place to work. So I think that people around the area know that. So. Let's see. So you were talking, Mayor Pro Tem, a little bit about the balance between privacy and yes,
Security.
Security, yeah. So I know the records retention and with the videos and being able to watch or to review videos, and just how public information requests, those are all big issues, and some of them PSAC was grappling with. So I'm just wondering, with the license plate readers and video cameras, what is our records retention policy on videos and whatnot?
So right now, the current video system's maintained by our IT department. So I think they usually run like about 30 days before it records over itself. So if you need a copy of a video, that you have to go through the IT department to get it. And it's about 30 days just because the system records over itself. When we've talked about a proposal, we would be able to control that 30 or 60-day mark, depending upon how long we want to retain the data. And then LPR data is stored separately. Any LPR data gets transferred to the state for retention. And so all of those different retention periods come into play. So as you know, there's already a number of LPR systems across the state and county. And this would just be something that would be controlled by the city, but that data is still transferred off to the state for permanent housing and auditing and storage.
And also with public information request, I know sometimes if there's a case, a lawyer will come, one of those lawyers will come in and they'll just ask for all the information, and it takes a tremendous amount of staff time to actually respond.
It does. So the MPIA requests come in through our records section, and they generally go through the Administrative Services Office, and they can take an extensive amount of time, particularly if it involves body-worn camera. And we do get a lot of requests for body-worn camera, either from State's Attorney's Office, attorneys. We've seen it from insurance companies for car crashes. Everybody's looking for that data now. So it's basically, for every bit of redaction, they have to literally watch the entire video, place the redactions, then rewind it and watch it over again. So it's kind of a 2-to-1. And Captain or Deputy Chief might be behind me going, no, it's more like 4-to-1. And then for every camera that existed on that scene, the officer's body camera, the new car cameras themselves. So if they're on a 30-minute accident, that's 60 minutes worth of video that has to be redacted. Think about having to watch all of it, redact it, then go back and watch it again to make sure you didn't miss anything. So you're talking 3 hours worth of work just to do body-worn camera for one car crash that was a half an hour. So it's pretty extensive. And the employee that does that, she's a member of our records section who's also handling customer service requests at the window, records requests, and a variety of other tasks to go along with that.
How does she do that? Is she able to speed up the video? Or?
Can't. You just watch it basically minute to minute. So it's a very time-consuming process to redact video. Many other large organizations actually have brought on just dedicated staff to do nothing but body camera work.
It's a question of almost too much information as we get access to more and more. It's just managing the information, managing the request, just figuring out how to do that. Because the public has a right to know, but at the same time, we're just we have limitations on the number of people and the amount of. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Well, 8 hours in a shift.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
So the question about, so that the 30 days that you said before it starts recording over there, if I remember correctly from doing the Citizens Police Academy, but if there's an incident or some reason to save it, it gets pulled out separately, and that's on a different schedule then?
So if we pull, let's just say there's an incident that occurs on a camera, and we actually pull a copy of that, we'll put it to a physical storage device so that we can maintain it for evidence. So that would be stored separately from just the run-of-the-mill video that's being recorded.
So you basically have 30 days to identify if you need to go get the video and save it for whatever purpose for future needs.
Yes.
It's difficult. Hey, another issue just to think about or talk about with the juvenile offenders. You know, I think there have been cases in Greenbelt in the past year, 2 years, where a 13-year-old has been associated with gun violence. So how PSAC made some recommendations about working with young people. So how have those recommendations influenced your thinking?
You know, one of the things, and I can't speak directly how some of their recommendations have affected, but you know, one of the things that we've talked about is some of our youth programs that we're doing, particularly as staffing allows it, we'll have this youth services position that will come on board and focus solely on crimes involving juvenile offenders. But you know, one of the things that we do is really try to have those programs in place to interact with kids prior to their involvement with the criminal justice system. Those non-traditional interactions that we have. Officer Alvarez is really good at that over in Franklin Park. A number of other officers focus on those kind of interactions, whether it's just, you know, a lot of it goes unnoticed, and sometimes it doesn't even make it up to me. And then I hear a story of, you know, one of our officers buying kids toys, right? She just drives around with a trunk load of stuff in her car. She sees kids that need something. She gets out and has these interactions with them, and they need a sports equipment or whatever. She actually has a pile of it in the trunk of her car she's managed to collect, right? So those are the kind of things that when they're able to have those non-traditional interactions and be able to have that encounter with a kid that's in a positive light. It's not a you know, kind of we're there for a call for service, but hey, there's some kids, they're standing around, let's see what they're doing. Oh, they're missing, you know, a basketball. Let's take them over to the courts and we've got one in the car. Just those kind of things, right? It just redirects the kids, that positive influence, and that's what we're trying to do with those programs.
Yeah, you know, it's really, really tough right now because we do have these things happening in our community, and it does seem that they're getting younger and younger, 13 and 14-year-olds. So I'm confident. I know for a fact that our state legislature will be dealing with some of these questions. And, you know, sometimes we try and do things on the local level. Sometimes the county will preempt what we try and do. You know, if we do things that are not conforming to the state or the county, we get preempted.
Pretty much.
Guys, what do you want to talk about now?
Well, I just want to follow up with what you were saying regarding the issue of privacy versus enforcement in terms of the video. And I think the main issue with everything is balance. And we talked about the juvenile issue too. It's a balance. And I think one of the key things that we can inject into it is transparency. I think that once we can identify what we're looking at in terms of the retention and there's awareness around that, that really helps to alleviate a lot of concerns, because I think when people feel like they don't know what's going on, they tend to add more drastic viewpoint to it. So I think that if we're utilizing more video and things like that, we need to find a way to really share what it's being used for, how long it's being used for, what purposes, and what we can flood that information in various ways that we can do so. I think that would be beneficial in really dealing with that push and pull situation we have regarding dealing with crime and also protecting privacy rights of citizens.
So that's why we like.
So,
Could I follow up?
yeah,
on
please
a
go
couple
ahead.
of things in regards to that. You know, building on what you're saying in regards to transparency and all those other kinds of things, I think too, again, not that it's a be-all, end-all, but some of the things you're saying in terms of talk to the youth advisory or talk to Park and Rec or speak to each one of you about what you've done and go back to the survey, I do think we could find a foundation as part of a strategic plan for the community to address this issue. Now, I know it sounds pie in the sky and, you know, you're talking about 90 or whatever, but I really do think we've got some of that piece of it. And, you know, the way the chief talks about how committed the officers are, to maybe really have that be part of this structure in terms of, you know, I know, and I'm not saying how to use the officers at all, but, you know, if it's a organized sports kinds of things that I know you all have done in the past, that if it's in a structured kind of a community engagement, you know, again, is transparency in a different way, that they can see officers in a different kind of way. And I know you all are doing that in addition to all the other pieces, and maybe that can again kind of help look at it as a broader picture.
You know, in that regard, this isn't connected with the police department, but a couple of friends of mine, I'm an avid pickleball player, and they have started a program in Franklin Park for kids to introduce them to the sport, and there has been a tremendous amount of interest in it. Of course, they can't play yet, but they have a hell of a good time. And it's, you know, when you direct kids into doing something constructive or fun rather than going out and, you know, robbing somebody, it's never a bad thing. And I think we should do more of that.
Well, and
Getting kids into sports is I think is a great idea.
And Robert Strasberg writing that article about cookies across the bridge, they're trying to do it over at Greenbelt Middle, which is another area where the kids can get beat up coming out of school. So, you know, those kinds of things, and, you know, kind of working on that.
That's it. I hadn't heard about that. Are they thinking about? Hey, so have you, has PSAC tried to work directly with ACE or with any of with the middle school, or work with the principals or the PTAs to try and do some outreach to just heightening awareness and just communicating to young people in particular, working with parents around these issues of safety?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did. Mary, I'm thinking, you know, we did our forums. Is that what you're talking about, or?
We reached out to the principal at
Middle school?
Roosevelt.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you, Mary.
Got no response. To try to.
But there's always more to be done. I mean, there, you know, et cetera. I guess I wouldn't know what PSAC's role would be to reach out to the school.
Well, she came to a meeting that
Yes.
Greenbrier, and
That's
so
right.
she provided her information to us, and Peggy and myself reached out to her in in wanting to participate and get some involvement, but there was never a response
Yeah, you're right.
from that.
I forgot that.
So, I
I don't
mean,
have a good
what do you
memory.
do?
Well, I think you are doing a lot of the right things historically, and over the past 2 years, and so maybe just instead of having a forum or a survey or outreach activities, instead of having it like a one-off, just actually having a regular, continuing with that on a regular schedule, like every 6 months or every year, doing administering a survey and doing outreach. I'm thinking off the top of my head.
Well, maybe we could also see, because we wouldn't want to duplicate. I know that the police department does regular kind of checks in with citizens who have contacted the police department, isn't that right? So maybe getting more understanding about what they're doing and seeing how we could, so we're not duplicating stuff.
Or joint events where we can participate along with the police department when they're having some events. But I do think that we have opportunity that we could engage in the future with all those places that you've mentioned in terms of engaging the juvenile population, the young adult population through schools, things. And that's something that maybe we could do in terms of outreach to the schools. Maybe they can attend a meeting, a PSAC meeting, and maybe we can look to get garner more ideas from them and how we can help. So I think that those are great suggestions.
As well as their perception of feeling safe and whatnot.
Yes.
Let's take, there's a few questions. Mr. Rand, would you like to make a comment?
Hi, I'm Bob Rand. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, 19 T Ridge Road. So I'm really happy to hear this conversation about a more holistic approach to public safety. I think there's been a lot of evidence that investment in communities through youth programs, recreational engagement, education really makes a difference. And it would be great to see PSAC take that on as kind of a new direction for researching public safety, maybe just reviewing what are the most effective things that other cities are doing in this area, and seeing about approaching that. So I wanted to just make a couple comments about data. For one, first of all, it's hard to find it on the police website. So the accreditation page has a CALEA assessments subheading, but there's no links under it. You have to know to go to the general orders to find it. So maybe just adding some links down here would be a great idea. So I wanted to point out that the 2021 and 2022 CALEA reports point out the same kind of disturbing discrepancies that PSAC pointed out a couple of years ago between warnings and citations. For example, for 2022, for white males, we have 220 warnings and 8 citations. For Black non-Hispanic males, we have 1379 warnings and 748 citations. There's also an imbalance with the white versus Hispanic. And then one thing that really caught my attention that I have a question about is under the CALEA data, firearm display show of force has escalated quite a bit. 2021 was 1 incident, 2021 incident, 2021 7 incidents, and 2022 38 incidents. So my question to PSAC and the police department is that when a police officer draws a weapon and shows it to someone, what does that mean, show of force, and why has it escalated so high in the last 3 years? Thank you.
So just, it's generally, if you use a firearm to gain compliance. So just drawing from a holster doesn't necessarily generate a report, but displaying it, pointing it at a person, and gaining compliance is what generates the report. And the reason that you see such a kind of a big kind of snowball up, prior years wasn't mandatory reporting. And so halfway through 22, when you see the 7 is when we brought in the mandatory reporting. And then that's why you see a much bigger number for 23. It was something new that we instituted halfway through, and that's why you see the numbers that you do.
Appreciate that. I have to I have to confess. Sometimes I look at the city website, and some of the links just aren't there. So I know that one of City Manager Samarone's priorities is actually kind of rethinking and redoing, having a vendor. It's really time for an update on the website because I think that some of the information is just hard to find. See, let's see. We do have a question here. Let's see, who is that?
It's Matt Enzio. Has his
Okay.
hand raised.
Mr. Enzio, are you there?
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. Matthew Enzio, Green Crescent Court. There's two things. Ms. Pompey had a great idea about with PSAC and the youth committee coming together. And I had a really good idea of coming up with like a green belt cadet program and really tackling the middle school grades, because it seems like that's where we're having some problems, and kind of attacking the kids with like a police a green belt cadet program. That might be a really good idea to bring the kids in to the police department, get them to kind of understand what the police department does, and go through, and then come up with some type of median. I really like that idea. And then the second thing is, I noticed I was on the website, and I didn't see like a tip line for citizens. And what I wanted to see and kind of challenge the police department in the city is I noticed that a lot of citizens, they want to help, they want to get engaged, but a lot of them are kind of afraid to get really involved. But if there's a way where we can try to get the like anonymous tip line for a crime that residents want to like report on the city website, I think that'd be really great. Be a way to increase involvement with adults and then with the police, and trying to really solve the crime issue collectively. And that's it.
Thank you. I think those are good suggestions. Yeah. We've had a cadet program in the past.
We've done cadet programs. We've done police explorers. We're currently working with the rec department on another type of explorer style program. It's a public safety and general program. It's aimed at the high school kids. It'll involve the police and the fire department doing a public safety cadet type program.
Oh, there's the police academy. Is there an age limit on that?
You have to be 20 and a half.
Okay, 20 and a half?
20 and a half. You have to be 21 when you graduate.
Has everybody on PSAC gone through that, or also you have
Citizens Police Academy, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. There's no age limit for that. You just have to be over 18.
Everyone.
Open for you, Emmett. You're invited.
I checked my ID. So have you all had a chance to go through that, or also the ride along programs? Do you have any feedback on those, just in terms of access? You done it?
No.
Okay.
I did enjoy the Greenbelt Academy. That was a couple of years ago. That was really wonderful program. It really, really explains a lot of things to you. So I recommend that for every Greenbelt citizen actually take part of. But I just wanted to follow up on what Matthew said regarding the citizens tip line. And I just want to go back to our survey, because that was one of the questions that we asked about the likeliness of reporting crime. And most response to that answer was no. So there is a lack of willingness for neighbors to report crimes, and maybe they feel the repercussions of doing so. There's safety concerns in doing so. So I don't know if the anonymous tip line would help, but I do think that it shows that there is work to be done in terms of when there's a crime that's committed, a willingness or safety concerns to be alleviated so people can feel free to report those crimes. Because how are we going to solve the crime if they're never reported? And we have to have some sort of comfort for people to feel like they can actually do so and not be negatively impacted by doing so.
I'd like to make a little comment with regard to that as well, and what Matt said and what you said. So a year and a half ago, I had the unfortunate experience of a derecho wind coming through Greenbelt where I live, and the top 30 feet of a tree fell on my roof and collapsed the ceiling on my head. So the reason I'm telling the story is we're standing there in the rain in shock, and all of a sudden, people from all around my neighborhood, from blocks away, all started walking up and offering to help. They cleared the roof, they cut the wood, they put a tarp on, they cleaned it out. Why can't we try to instill this feeling of community in all these small communities within Greenbelt? So just like when I used to give training on active shooter, if you see something, say something. Why couldn't that also be part of a strategy so citizens who feel that they have no power, could feel a little bit more, I'm gonna use a trite word that's used a lot lately, empowered to do something. It may not work with a lot of citizens, but it may work with some. Just a thought.
That's a great suggestion. I love that. Let's see. Well, this is a two-sided conversation. We could talk for quite a bit longer, but let me just kind of open up the floor to questions from you about what are you looking for from council or from the city that would help make it easier or more effective in doing what you feel needs to be done.
Well, I think more conversations like this are helpful. This is the first time I've participated in such a forum, and I think the more opportunities we have for communication is definitely very helpful. So I would look forward to more of these, depending on your schedules. I recognize everyone's busy, but I do think that helps, that when we can gather together and try to come up with a collective solutions.
One other thing, if during the course of your discussions on council, you have specific concerns, that those be communicated to us. Sometimes the communications are kind of vague, and we have to kind of figure out what they want and what they don't want. The more specificity, the better.
We're here to serve you.
That suggestion of a tip line, if there was some sort of a PSAC tip line where people can directly make suggestions or make inquiries through PSAC, that might be an interesting tactic to try to get more comfortable coming to you, maybe not coming to not coming to the police department. PSAC with a concern.
So just we've had in the past anonymous tip lines, and they were never used. So we currently have basically used PG Crime Solvers as that anonymous tip source today, and that's what we advertise on our pages. So we've tried the tip lines before, and they don't get anything. So if it's not gonna be used, it's hard to monitor a service that's not getting anything happening on it. So we use a service that is monitored, which is just PG Crime Solvers.
So if I don't see any other hands up from council, so I'm going to wrap up after we take a comment from the public, because I know there's actually a police forum tomorrow night over in Greenbelt Station.
That is correct. We'll be meeting tomorrow night over at the Verde Apartment Complex in the community room at 7 p.m. And we've invited everybody from the Verde Apartment Complex itself, as well as from Greenbelt Station Homeowner Association for a community meeting there.
And that's 7 o'clock tomorrow?
7 o'clock, yeah.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Please, sir, if you could step to the podium.
New Orleans, Greenbelt. Earlier, it was stated that council has no role to play in modifying general orders. I would agree that council has no role in the writing of general orders. That's the place of the chief and his command staff in consultation with the city manager. But it is absolutely council's role to make public policy in the city of Greenbelt. And where there's a conflict with what council thinks is appropriate in the general orders as they might exist at the time, it should be council's place, responsibility to effectuate change in the general orders to conform with the public policy that council deems appropriate. In this regard, it seems to me that as part of the city's Fair and Just Policing Act of 3 years ago, as well as state legislation, local police departments that have utilized body cameras are supposed to make that body camera footage available to residents, citizens on request. I can't have all the information I would like to have, but it's my sense that more than a year ago, some members of PSAC, or maybe the whole of PSAC, requested the opportunity to view the body camera video from an incident that was alluded to earlier, and met with resistance, which I don't fully understand, from the police department. Certain requirements that if they were to view that video, they should not then report on what they've seen. And that, I think, flies in place with stated public policy enunciated by council, as well as state legislation, but by council when it adopted those elements of the Fair and Just Policing Act 3 years ago. And I don't know how it was resolved, if it was resolved. If it was resolved and everybody who on PSAC who had wanted to see that video is happy with the resolution, maybe I shouldn't have any concerns, except that since I don't know how it was resolved, I still have those concerns. And in Greenbelt, at least, our police department should not resist requests from residents of Greenbelt, members of the public, to view any such videotape that is in the hands of the police department.
Thank you. You had a comment? Just a little bit closer.
What I wanted to say, these meetings, I think, are good. But what happens after the conversation? Where is their action? We just, like the cameras, we've been talking about the cameras for years. And every time we start right back at where we were.
I would have to say that council has about 17 different advisory boards. So we listen and we act as best we can. And the way that that's been manifested is we've had funding for additional cameras in the budget for a number of years. It comes down to capacity. Sometimes there are things that council wants to happen by way of the advisory boards, and staff does their best, but things take time. There are technological challenges like connecting cameras, being able to have cameras in parts of town that are not connected by broadband has been a challenge. So it's actually taken a while to get to the point this can be connected up. So I take your concern very, very seriously. But as a council member, sometimes there are things that we ask for, and it just takes time. So we do listen. I don't think that we start from square one. That's my feeling.
Actually, I'd like to respond to Mary's question. Mary, I'm on my third page of notes now. It's not organized really well, et cetera, but I feel that we've really had a robust conversation, and not particularly on the cameras, understandably, but on some of the other ideas that we could kind of look to come up with some ways to reach out to people and develop some strategies in regards to what people in Greenbelt are thinking about public safety, about police, and maybe making some suggestions. So it's not really firm. I think I've heard that as something that we can go back to our meeting and work with the chief in regards to that. And then, if there are areas that need to be more clarity on, we could go back. Having said that, I will say, I did bring up at the beginning of the meeting that PSAC's request to review that officer-involved shooting still is on the table, and we haven't gotten a response in regards to council as to where that is. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but just wanted to mention that.
Appreciate that. Some of that, it's an administrative decision. It's not so much a policy decision. I think that the chief has articulated his concerns and reasoning, and through the previous acting city manager. I don't think the city manager has weighed in, but I think it's one thing to. Well, Chief, why don't you respond?
So this is obviously been kind of around the horn conversation about the particular incident as it occurred, and our concern has always been with the safety of those persons involved, particularly the subject that was involved. It was a mental health crisis, and that's, in my opinion, what it was. If it hadn't resulted in the incident, in the shooting the way it had, it would not be releasable because it would be a HIPAA violation, because it would be dealing with somebody with a mental health crisis. We looked at it, we consulted with the state MPI ombudsman, and we came to a decision that we would not release the video publicly. We have allowed it to be viewed, and Ms. Higgins has come in on multiple occasions to see the video. And that offer stands for any member of PSAC that wants to come in and view the video. We just don't want to make a hard copy of it available. As to the request from PSAC itself, I believe that the previous intern city manager, along with the city attorney, recommended that was not in the best interest of the city, as any report that may be produced that was contrary to the official findings could put the city in some additional civil liability, and so that was the reasoning behind that.
We have a difference of opinion, a strong difference of opinion.
That's how it is. So if there are no additional comments or discussion to take place tonight, I'd like to go to the session. I appreciate your service on PSAC and hope that you will continue to diligently work on the issues that we are collectively facing and keep council informed and involved in your deliberations. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for all your time and your service.
I do have one information item I'd like to share.
You want to what? Oh, separate from us, we can go. Okay.
I just want council members to know that we received this card from Gigi Whittington, along with this box of cookies. So if you would like a cookie, we've got some right here. There you go.
So we'll need to help you, so you don't take them all home.
Okay. Let's go ahead and call it a night. Thank you.